Welcome to TRT World and Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia and Herzegovina. I am Semir Sejfovic, and in this week's Across the Balkans, we focus on Gaza and Palestine. We'll show you how countries, governments, and the population in the Balkan region are affected by the brutalities which are going on in Palestine and the genocide across Gaza. Sarajevo hosted the Gaza Tribunal's first public session, issuing the Sarajevo Declaration, which condemned Israel's actions in Gaza as genocide. The declaration called on global civil society to take actions against ongoing atrocities and to demand accountability. At the tribunal, we spoke to prominent professor and human rights advocate Sami Al-Arian, who shared his insights on the tribunal's significance, the broader struggle for Palestinian justice, and civil society's role in confronting such grave injustices. Professor Al-Arian, thank you very much for finding the time to speak for TRT World and the show Across the Balkans. Here in Sarajevo, we've had the chance to listen to the discussions at the Gaza Tribunal. What are you hoping to get from the declaration that has been found here in Sarajevo?
The importance of the Gaza Tribunal is that it represents really a cross-section from civil society. You have academics, you have experts, you have media people, you have activists from all parts of the world. They come together in order to discuss the crime of the century, the crime of genocide, war crimes being perpetrated today in Gaza. And they come with the full recognition that the world has turned its back on the Palestinians, and that we need to expose these crimes to the world, but also try to get the people with conscience interested, not only interested, but also active to stop this crime.
But how long can the world truly observe what is happening in Gaza? I myself am a child of the Bosnian War, and the horrors which we're witnessing coming out of Gaza are beyond international law, beyond human rights conventions, beyond human rights in general.
I think we can see now that many people across the world, including the United States and Europe and other places around the globe, in which they are outraged what they've been seeing in Palestine. Tens of thousands of people have been killed, hundreds of thousands injured, millions displaced, millions facing starvation. As we speak, people are dying because of starvation. And the inability of the world, of the international institutions to stop this war, to shut down this war, is taking its toll on everyone. And I think Palestine today is becoming the global issue that is capable of mobilizing all the freedom-loving people around the world, all the people who have conscience. They are demonstrating, they are speaking out, they are in the streets, they are crying out for these politicians to do something. And I think that eventually brings, particularly in free societies, the politicians to their senses. We have seen the grip of the Zionist movement on the United States elites, the United States policymakers, many European governments, but I think that now is becoming a burden on these governments because they can no longer make a defense for what's happening. Everybody is recognizing that what they have is a genocide. When you go and kill babies and target women in their tents and burn them alive, who can defend that? And you're going to say that this is a human shield, and everybody sees you're targeting hospitals, mosques, churches, schools, universities. The object here is to make Gaza unlivable, uninhabitable. And when that is your goal, you cannot hide it. Everybody is seeing this and makes it very difficult. So I think we're seeing now the whole world outraged at what the Zionists are doing in Palestine. And I think eventually that is going to bring about a global movement that's going to hold the Zionists accountable to their crimes.
Have we seen with the Gaza conflict, which is now ongoing, so to say, the masks fall off, and with this war it has kind of displaced the hypocrisy of media, the hypocrisy of politics and diplomacy. pressure on the UN, NGOs, which are supposed to serve societies. Has this war taken off the masks of the realities of the societies that we live in?
I believe so, but let's not forget that corporate media has always been in the service of an empire, in the service of colonial interest, in the service of imperialists. This is nothing new. I mean, we could see the struggle of many people around the world. You can go back even a few decades back, whether it was in Vietnam, in Algeria, Africa, in Asia, in other places. There has always been a cover-up for the atrocities, for the crimes that empires and colonial powers have against these people. But eventually it catches up with them. Eventually these people will be exposed. And I think what's happening today in Palestine has exposed this fact, as you say, that people can no longer hide the fact that children and civilians and babies and hospitals are being targeted, because what they're trying to do is to change the demographics inside historical Palestine. Israel had a problem. Israel had a historic opportunity to have settled this conflict back in what is called the Oslo process in 1993. In 1993, there was a historical Palestinian compromise by the official Palestinian leadership. They thought that in exchange for recognition, they can get part of Palestine as a state. The Israeli government, successive governments, and these were on the left and the right, they decided that they're not interested in any kind of compromise. They wanted the whole of Palestine. They had three things, and they should have or would have chosen two out of these three to choose an option. They wanted to be called democratic. They wanted a Jewish majority. But for that to happen, they would have compromised on the land, recognizing Palestinians on part of historical Palestine. They wanted the whole land. So that would have been the so-called two-state solution. Had they wanted the whole land and be called democratic, they would have dropped being majority Jewish, because today there are more Palestinians in historic Palestine than there are Jews. 7.3 million Palestinians versus 7.1 million Jews. But they wanted to be called Jewish majority. That would have been the third option, which is an apartheid regime. That's what they chose. And for the past 3 decades, since the start of Oslo in 1993, the number of settlers in the West Bank has risen from 125,000 to about 800,000. Smotrich, who's part of this government, said even before Tufan al-Aqsa, this is in early 2023, he said Palestinians have 3 options. One is to recognize that this is a Jewish state, this is a Jewish land, they are at our behest, they could stay here, but they have no civil rights, no political rights. No Palestinian would accept that. He said, I understand that. Then they could be compensated and leave, and if they don't, the only option after that is death. That's what the Palestinians were facing. Now, because of what's happening in Gaza, Israelis, the government, and these Zionist fascists think that they have a fourth option to solve their demographic problem. They don't want to be called apartheid, so they thought what we could do here is to take advantage, take an opportunity, and end this demographic problem by killing as many Palestinians and forcibly expel them from the historic land of Palestine, so that we can be the majority, and then we can end this so-called Palestinian problem. That's what they are doing. And the world now has to face, it's no longer Israel's option, Israel's choice. It's the world's choice, whether they will allow an apartheid in historic Palestine or whether they will allow genocide in historic Palestine. And I believe the world is waking up, and they are not going to be successful in either endeavor, whether they want to have an apartheid regime or to ethnically cleanse Palestinians.
Professor, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Serbia has long balanced its ties in the Middle East, publicly backing peace while maintaining relations with all sides. But since the Gaza conflict reignited, Belgrade has quietly increased arms exports to Israel, even as civilian deaths rise and global criticism intensifies. In our next story, Katarina Petrovic explores Serbia's hidden role and the voices speaking out against it.
Since violence erupted in Gaza in late 2023, Serbia's government has quietly emerged as major arms supplier to Israel, openly defying international warnings and UN calls to stop fueling conflict zones. While publicly claiming neutrality, Belgrade has deepened defense ties with Israel behind closed doors, despite the country's historical sympathy for the Palestinian cause.
Činjenica je da sad Ministarstvo spoljnih poslova ima vrlo tvrdu orijentaciju prema Vašingtonu, s obzirom na to da Trumpova administracija prepoznaje Izrael kao svog posebnog saveznika. Mislim da zvanični Beograd prati taj trag i da naročito od Trumpove inauguracije je još osjetnije da Srbija traži političku podršku prema Americi i prema Izraelu.
Serbia's arms exports to Israel exploded, from $1.6 million in 2023 to over $48 million in 2024. A Bern Harrods investigation linked at least 20 Israeli military flights to Belgrade, quickly making Serbia Israel's second biggest weapons supplier.
Ministarstvo za trgovinu koje je nadležno za objavu tih podataka je odbilo naš zahtev u martu prošle godine, tvrdeći da je to strogo poverljivo.
Despite mounting evidence of Israeli human rights abuses, Serbia's state-owned Yugo-Import SDPR shipped large quantities of artillery shells and ammunition directly into the Gaza conflict, claiming legality under international law, yet evoking secrecy clauses to shield the details.
Ne postoji ilegalni izvoz u Izrael. On se provodi na osnovu izdatih odobrenja od strane srpskih vlasti. Izdaje se odobrenje izraelskom vojnom avionu da sleti, da tu tovari, da to odveze. Tu ne postoji ništa nelegalno. Druga tema što prema srpskim propisima nije moguće ući u uvid dokumenta koji se bave tom materijom. A taj pristup zavisi od države do države.
In practice, secrecy clauses were invoked to keep the Israel deals out of public view, avoiding potential backlash. Military analyst Aleksandar Radić says Serbia's leadership knowingly takes political responsibility with each arms export, guided less by ethics and more by what suits daily politics.
Po našim propisima pojedinačni ugovori su tajne. Vi ne možete dobiti izveštaj po kojem piše koliko smo tačno isporučili Izraelu određenih sredstava. To je politički stav Vučića. On prepoznaje da postoji sprega između Vašingtona i Izraela, on prepoznaje priliku za afirmaciju u toj priči i od momenta kada je Izraelu bila cijena podrške da se isporuči neka oprema, isporučena oprema, pokazana je dobra volja.
For Serbia's government, these arms deals may be routine, but for Palestinians living here and for students and activists risking backlash to speak out, they're a brutal reminder that so-called neutrality isn't neutral at all. It has consequences.
Javnost koja drži do nekih normalnih humanih načela apsolutno će osuđivati Srbiju i smatraće saučesnicom u ovom jednom najvećih zločina u modernom vremenu.
In September 2024, President Vučić welcomed Israeli President Herzog to Belgrade, announcing a Serbia-Israel free trade deal. Herzog declared Serbia Israel's closest ally in the Balkans, sidelining Serbia's historical ties to Palestine.
Ako je Izraelu potrebno naoružanje i vojna oprema, onda Vučić odobrava isporuke. Kontekst Gaze je tu očigledno marginalizovan i moralno i politički. Izraelski avion sleti, natovari sanduke sa opremom koja je potrebna i prebacuje teret u Izrael. To su činjenice.
So as the genocide continued and intensified, and also as our government, the Serbian government's participation and profiting off of the genocide intensified, we felt the need to expand our activities and target various institutions that are complicit today here in Serbia.
The Collective for a Free Palestine uses culture and art to resist Serbia's complicity, highlighting connections between Palestinian liberation and local struggles. Their Artifada exhibition in March 2025 raised awareness and funds for Gaza.
We felt it was our responsibility to pressure the institutions that claim to belong to us and claim to work in our interests. I feel sad that this is the state of the world where activists feel they have to stay anonymous to speak out, and also very angry at my government here in Serbia that the repression that I'm witnessing against other activists has instilled this atmosphere of fear and retribution.
Upravo zbog toga što je jako nepopularno kritikovati Izrael pre svega, mislim da postoje problemi koji ljudi osjećaju u javnosti da pričaju o ovoj temi. Dakle, mnogi ljudi kada govore o ovoj temi javno ograđuju se, pokušavaju da to rade na neki diplomatski način upravo zbog te podrške zapadnih država Izraelu i zbog toga što su, na primjer, mnogi ljudi civilnog sektora, mediji povezani sa zapadnim donatorima.
For around 300 Palestinians in Serbia, these deals are deeply personal and painful.
Yeah, we have contact with several Palestinians that are living in Serbia, some even who came from Gaza, and they are first and foremost just happy to be in safety. I think that they see a lot of hope with the people and the people's support of Palestine, which I think is just another indicator that a state and a state's policy doesn't frequently reflect the people's will.
Serbia calls its neutrality, but the numbers, the flights, and the silence tell another story. As weapons move quietly across borders, resistance here grows louder, on campus, in galleries, and behind closed doors. And in a region that knows conflict well, that silence is starting to sound familiar. Katarina Petrovic, Across the Balkans, Belgrade.
As Montenegro's parliament stays silent, citizens are speaking out through protests, public art, and petitions with over 6,000 signatures demanding official condemnation of what they call genocide. Palestine's ambassador warns that symbolic gestures are no longer enough, and silence now could set a dangerous precedent. Mirjana Miladinovic reports from Podgorica.
This is Gaza. The world watches. And this is Montenegro. Over 6,000 citizens signed a petition. They want their country to condemn the genocide in Gaza. Their parliament never opened the door. Behind me is a mural painted by citizens who choose to speak out, even when institutions remained silent. While the Montenegrin parliament refused to even debate the petition, this wall became a voice for justice, for solidarity, and for those who feel that silence is not an option.
I believe that the politicians should hear more from their citizens and adapt their policies based on what their citizens are requesting. This is the basics of democracies.
MP Nikola Zirojevic attempted to bring the citizens' voice inside parliament. He was unsuccessful.
Kada smo konačno došli do situacije da razgovaramo na plenumu o peticiji, kada je ona prošla odbore, onda su počele da se dešavaju vrlo čudne situacije. Na kraju smo mi došli u situaciju da su oni koji su naravno imali većinu u parlamentu, kao što imaju za sve, planirali da predlažu neke amandmane kojima bi u potpunosti narušili suštinu rezolucije i da ne bi rezolucija o osudi zločina Izraela u Palestini postala suštinski rezolucija koja osuđuje Palestince zbog toga što su izloženi teroru. Ja sam je u dogovoru, naravno, opet sa suštinskim predlagačem, Pokretom solidarnosti i sa ambasadom Palestine povukao iz procedure.
Malo mi iskreno licemjerno, ako već pričamo o rezolucijama raznim, licemjerno je u smislu da bez problema prolaze rezolucije o zločinima koje svakako treba da se osude i to je fakat, to je nesporno, koji su se desili decenijama unazad, a ono što se trenutno uživo dešava pred očima cijelog svijeta, prosto žmurimo na to.
Pozivam isto tako vlast da nas podrži u ovome i da se potrudi na bilo koji način da doprinese Palestini.
Ne žele da preuzmu odgovornost, ono što se danas dešava u Palestini, sutra može da se desi i bilo kome, ne daj Bože i nama, ko će nas podržati, ko će stati uz nas.
Since October 2023, the solidarity movement with Palestine warned that the events were the beginning of a genocide. It started a petition to push institutions, especially parliament, to take a stance.
Cjelokupni politički subjekti su bili nekih nejasnih stavova, nekih, da kažem, bili su zagovarači ublažavanja te riječi, da kažem, zločin, da ne bude zločin, nego da bude nešto mnogo blaže, što ne oslikava realnost.
And now all eyes are on the Bosniak party.
Istim putem više ne možemo ići, jer je jasno da smo vidjeli da tim putem ne možemo doći do krajnjeg cilja. Dakle, to je značilo da ja sam više neću puštati rezoluciju u proceduri, jer sam ubijeđen da bismo došli na isto. U komunikaciji sa poslanicima iz bošnjačke stranke ja sam razumio da su oni vrlo voljni da to urade, dakle to su riječi koje su oni meni upućivali i onda sam rekao neka samo jedan od poslanika bošnjačke stranke potpiše rezoluciju, ja ću biti drugi. Dakle, moj potpis tu u svakom trenutku postoji jer ja stav nijesam promijenio i da onda pokrenemo opet razgovore oko ove rezolucije.
Bosniak party for now doesn't want to comment on this, but Petar Knežević doesn't agree it is just their responsibility.
Većinski identitet Bošnjaka, to je da su islamske vjeroispovijesti, sa tim da su Palestinci većinom naseljeni muslimani i da zbog toga oni na neki način imaju odgovornost, odnosno oni da trebaju da podnesu tu peticiju, što je apsurd. Ne mislim da je to dobro, zato što pravimo od političkog subjekta nekoga ko štiti isključivo nečija prava, a ne univerzalna prava. Sa druge strane, da se dešava genocid nad Srbima, ne daj Bože, ne bismo tražili isključivo od srpskih partija, prosrpskih ili kako god ih nazvali, partija da zagovaraju taj stav, već jednako sve partije. Tako da ovo je jedna zamka u koju nas uvlače političari.
The problem they see lies at the feet of the president of the parliament.
Vidimo da Andrija Mandić ne usteže se da organizuje posjete Izraelu, da organizuje sastanke sa visokim zvaničnicima, ambasadorom Izraela i tako dalje, da gaji te odnose u sred genocida koji gledamo svaki dan na televiziji. Tu je pitanje da li želite da zaštitite ekonomski interes ili čast, obraz i ljudska prava i da vidimo što nam je na većem nivou.
Guided by interest or pride, the time for words has passed anyway.
In order to stop the Israeli atrocities, we need an international collective actions. That means every and each country should take part on this global pressure on Israel to stop this genocide. And to be frank, words are not enough. Israel and the Israeli fascist government will not be responsive to these verbal declarative announcements. The only way Israel will understand that they need to stop what they're doing is the moment when they feel there will be consequences. We need sanctions, we need boycott, we need a weapon embargo.
But how much time does Palestine have?
The question is how much time the world has to save humanity. Palestinians will not disappear. We will be in our land forever. They are killing, yes, it's sad, it's horrific, but we are not going anywhere.
while some children continue to run for their lives. Others run through Montenegrine meadows, waving a flag not just of a nation, but of solidarity. Maybe, just maybe, these Montenegrine children, with no power but a flag, will remind us what it means to have courage. Mirjana Miladinović, Across the Balkans, Podgorica, Montenegro.
Thank you for watching TRT World and letting us once again take you across the Balkans. This is all from the team for this week. We hope to see you next time. Bye-bye, or as they say in Sarajevo, vidimo se sljedeći put.